Here is a mad genius tip for preparing a perfect steakhouse style ribeye at home. Look at this steak. I mean, this guy is huge. It's about 1 3/4 pounds, but it is beautiful. But you know what else it is? Expensive. You can spend upwards of $75 to get a steak this big, especially if it's good quality. And so you don't want to ruin it. I'm gonna start by seasoning it generously with some salt and pepper. And you're gonna add a lot more salt than you think is necessary because it's so big. I mean, look at this. And like I said, because it's an expensive, large, beautiful steak, you wanna make sure it's cooked perfectly, and that's exactly what I'm gonna teach you to do here. So I've got my salt on there. I'm gonna hit it with some freshly ground black pepper. You wanna get it all the way around. And I would say a steak this size, you know, almost 2 pounds, would actually serve about 4 people. And here I have, dun 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 dun, a cast iron skillet, because we are cooking this indoors. This is one of my favorite ways to cook a steak. It's gonna give you a really beautiful char, but you're also gonna have a lot of control over the temperature of the pan. I've preheated the cast iron skillet over medium-high heat, and I'm gonna add a tablespoon of canola oil. Now, we're gonna go right into the pan. So I have my big, beautiful ribeye here, steakhouse style, and I'm going to add it to my skillet. You can see how well seasoned the pan is because the steak doesn't even stick right when I put it in. There's a couple things here that are gonna be your best friends, and one of them is a timer. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm actually gonna set it for 2 minutes, and I'm gonna cook it for 2 minutes on one side. I actually write about this technique in my cookbook, Just Cook It. I learned it from a chef friend of mine named Paul Nani, and the genius thing about it is you're kind of breaking the myth that you want to get this extreme char all over your steak. Because what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna turn the steak way more than you think you should. And believe it or not, what it does, it cooks the meat evenly from top to bottom and from end to end. And you are gonna just love it, I promise. The first 2 minutes down, now I'm gonna flip this. Now I want you to see what this looks like. So it's not gonna be super charred or super brown. It's just gonna be kind of evenly golden. And that is exactly what you're looking for. Kind of shake it around, coat it in the oil and the rendered beef fat that's kind of naturally ending up in the pan. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna set our timer for 10 minutes. Every minute or 2 minutes, you're gonna flip it, you're gonna rotate it around, you're gonna get it nicely even and nicely brown all over. You can see here, I flip it over, you got that nice golden color on that side. And now what I wanna do, because you wanna make sure you get all the sides, I'm gonna flip it just like this, and start rendering some of the fat that's on the side of the steak. You kind of move it around, look at that beautiful color right there. And I'm gonna just go ahead and flip it on this side. One of the things that I love about this technique is because we're not cooking over a really high heat, I'm not getting a ton of smoke in the kitchen. And that is really great for indoor cooking. Because we're cooking such a gigantic piece of meat, I wanna make sure it's like really evenly cooked. And in this case, the more I move it around, the more I turn it, the more I flip it, the more I'm evenly distributing the heat. And it might look like I'm pushing down on the meat a lot, but I'm actually not. I'm just kind of like gently prodding it to make sure that it's kind of making contact with the pan. You don't want to press too hard because if you do, you're just going to press out all those delicious juices. Go around this side, get a little bit of that. You don't want to get a little bit of this. You want to get a little bit of this. Brown it all. I'm almost nearing the end of my timer, and what I want to do is just kind of see where I'm at. So I'm going to insert an instant read thermometer right into the center of the meat. And what I'm looking for is anywhere from 65 to 70 degrees. What did I just say? 65, and that is exactly where we're at. So at that point, I'm going to take it out. So there are two really important parts to this process. The first one is flipping it every 1 to 2 minutes to kind of evenly distribute the heat. That way we can get the edge to edge and side to side perfect temperature. The other trick is we are gonna let it rest halfway through cooking. So as you saw, I brought it to 65 degrees, and we are gonna let this rest for 10 minutes and kind of redistribute the juices and let that temperature kind of just glide on through the meat. All right, so I've let the steak rest for 10 minutes, and in the meantime, I've preheated my pan back up to about medium-high heat. And at this point, your steak has kind of risen in temperature. It's probably gone up anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees. So we are gonna get this back in the pan to finish cooking. So I'm gonna add it right in here. Oh, listen to that sizzle. It is a beautiful sound when you hear that. We are gonna continue to cook the steak, turning it every 1 to 2 minutes until it's the perfect temperature. So I'm gonna set the timer to about, let's say 5 minutes, and we'll start there. During that 10 minutes that the steak was resting, the steak kind of redistributed all its juices, and the temperature that you're cooking it to kind of evened out throughout all of the meat. This technique is actually perfect no matter what temperature you like. Whether you like it medium rare like I do, or if you even like it medium, you're gonna follow the same technique. You're just gonna pull it at a different temperature. So in this case, because I am going for medium rare, which I highly recommend, I'm going for that steakhouse style temperature, I want to bring it to about 120 degrees. So I'm just continuing to sear the meat, I'm continuing to turn it and flip it and get all the little edges cooked. We are going to temp this. Let's see where we're at here. I'm going to transfer it to my carving board, right into the side. And I am looking for about 120 degrees because I'm going to let it rest another 10 minutes and then it's going to come to medium rare temperature. Perfect. All right, so we're going to let that sit, and in the meantime, we are going to make a compound butter that's going to give a ton more flavor. I'm going to use about 4 tablespoons of butter because my steak serves about 4 people, and I'm going to put it right into a little mixing bowl. And you can see it's super duper soft, it's perfect. And to that, 1 garlic clove that I'll lightly tap it. So I'm just going to finely grate probably 3/4 of this garlic clove in here. And a compound butter is really just a very well seasoned butter. You can really make it with anything. In this case, I'm making kind of a summery one, even though it's not summer, but it's okay because I'm incorporating basil, which you can get pretty much all year nowadays. And I'm going to take about a teaspoon of finely grated lemon zest. And then I'm gonna take just a couple tablespoons of basil. If you can't find basil in the off season, just use rosemary. Just make sure you mince it really finely. You can use thyme, oregano, really anything that you'd like. Thinly slice the basil. Get that right into the bowl. And I'm going to add a nice pinch of salt and a little pepper. And I'm just going to use a fork to kind of blend this all together. And this is gonna give our perfectly cooked steak a ton of extra flavor. You're gonna use the fork to just really incorporate all that basil and lemon zest and garlic into the butter. And get all this beautiful butter, because what can make a steak better than butter? Okay, so before I slice the steak, one of the techniques that I really like to use is I like to take about half of the compound butter that I made and I slather it right on top of the meat. Because what's gonna happen now is as I slice, all that delicious butter is gonna kind of go in between all the little slices and flavor the entire steak. You can see it kind of already starts to melt. It's really beautiful. I'm gonna cut against the grain right down the middle, and check this out. Dun, 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 dun. Beautiful, medium rare ribeye steak. And this is why it's super mad genius, is because from the top to the bottom, you're almost the exact same temperature. It's like edge to edge cooking. It's so smart, it's super genius. And as you're cutting, what you'll notice is you actually still have a really beautiful crust on the outside, kind of that same crust that you get if you grill it or cook it over a really high heat. I actually like to serve a giant steak like this right on the board that you cut it. Just kind of fan out all the slices. And then what you do is you take the rest of the butter, in this case we made a basil butter, and you're just gonna spread it right on top. You just kind of let it melt into the slices. All right, now I get to enjoy. I'm gonna take a really perfect piece here. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a perfectly cooked piece of ribeye steak with a little basil butter. Make it fun. That is perfect. I'm gonna actually have a little bit more because we flipped it every 1 to 2 minutes, because we let it rest halfway through. We got that perfect temperature all the way through the meat, and that kept it really juicy and really tender. Once you learn this technique, you are gonna be blown away. So you're welcome, ladies and gentlemen.